All right, welcome in everybody. We have an unusual show for a typical Hoxhunt CISO Sandbox series because we are not in Helsinki, Finland this time. I am with my good friends George Finney and Dustin Sachs here in Austin, Texas for the Cyber Marketing Con. My first time here.
Mine as well, yeah.
Your first time here as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've been here for a while.
Okay.
George has been everywhere.
Yeah. There's a Johnny Cash song about that, I believe. Awesome. Hey, it's really great to have you guys here. And I'll just sort of kick us off a little bit talking about why I'm here and dearly beloved, why we are here together today is because we, actually George was a founding member of what is now, as of this year, a Cybersecurity Society Marketing Award winning program, the CISO Fantasy Phish Bowl. And the CISO Fantasy Phish Bowl makes no real sense from a marketing perspective. It's really just kind of, I've never tried to sell a thing to you guys before. It was the pandemic in 2021, and I like fantasy sports, and I like cybersecurity, and I thought, how about if I just find the world's greatest cybersecurity leaders, mostly CISOs, and we talk about fantasy sports through the prism of cybersecurity, and we have a thought leadership series. So that has been nominated for an award this year. Fingers crossed. I hope it wins, and if not, then always still fun to play. Dustin Sachs is here as a Rookie of the Year in this his first year, and he's been killing it with a 9-game winning streak to start. But I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to leave it off over to George, since as a founding member of the CISO Fantasy Phish Bowl League. What did you get out of it? Why did you say yes to me? Like that's what kind of blows me away, is that I don't think we had any interaction before, but you did say yes.
This is still a mystery to me, honestly. No. I had been out of fantasy football for several years. I got a little busy, with my day job, and I thought it was a really awesome opportunity to connect with some other CISOs that I wouldn't have naturally interacted with. And the group that you were able to trick into being a part of the group was really spectacular. And we really got a thing going. I love trash talking with other CISOs. I think I did pretty well in my first year. And I just thought, what a fun way of working with folks. And you're totally right. Hoxhunt really didn't pressure us into to buying a product or getting out there. And I think so much of what marketing is, you don't have to go straight to the closing. It's really about building a brand, and I think that kind of appealed to me, right? And there's a little bit of trust that I think was developed, but the skepticism coming in, like if I needed to bail on it, I could just leave. There's nothing keeping me there. So I thought it was a pretty low risk opportunity to hang out and have some fun.
Yeah, I mean, and I think for me it was, it's funny, and I think Eliot, you learned this, is I'd been involved in the Phish Bowl for 2 years without ever realizing that I was truly involved in it, because Sean Bowen and I used to meet every Tuesday, during our one-on-one, and the first 15 minutes was deconstructing the team and what had happened the weekend before and what moves was he going to make, and hearing about all this trash talk that was going on, the epic trash talk. I think I expressed to you when I joined this year, I saw the list of people when you introduced me, and I was like, oh, I get it now. Like when you and then to get involved and to just see the level of kind of camaraderie that was there, but also just the ability to step away from the everyday and have that one thing where you could connect with people on a personal level. I mean, where else in your very first week as a rookie can you thoroughly dominate Gary Hayslip, the guy who wrote the book, one of the guys who wrote the book on being a CISO, that you can literally talk trash and then thoroughly dominate Gary Hayslip. That to me is just, it's been such an awesome opportunity. And then really honestly to see the corollary that between sports and fantasy sports and even football, and really have to think about how does that relate to cybersecurity is so interesting. I was thinking about it while I was standing outside just a few minutes ago. fantasy football, you talk about the Monday morning quarterbacking, and where else do you see Monday morning quarterbacking? After pretty much every incident
Every
ever.
breach, yep.
Yeah, every breach, there's, well, you could have done this, and it's like, well, it's a marathon, not a sprint, So, and you make the best call based on, like, you don't know that Zach Ertz is going to get hurt mid-game. What are you going to do? What is your strategy? What is your backup plan? So, it's been interesting. It's been really exciting to be part of it. It's been exciting to get to experience and really talk with other people who are passionate about both, cybersecurity, but then to connect on a level that you wouldn't normally connect with. Like, the fact that you've got such a diverse group of people in the community that are part of this, it really creates this opportunity where now you've got 12 or 11 people you can reach out to that you already feel it's not I'm reaching out to Nicole Ford or Christina Shannon or any of these people like out of the blue. It's like you've got that connection you've built with somebody at a level that is different from the way we normally connect. So
Absolutely. I mean, a couple things that just pop up to me is what I have been really pleasantly surprised is the response from people who say they really appreciate the opportunity to connect and how important community actually is, I think, in your world. I mean, you guys have an extremely stressful job. And so what I have heard is that it can be really helpful to have these communities, and whether it's some kind of a off-the-grid Slack channel that some people might be talking about, or a WhatsApp group, or a fantasy football group, whatever it is, you can have people to lean on when things get a little bit dicey, or just when you need some new information. Is this vendor okay? Is this new approach going to be a good thing to do? George, you wrote the book on Zero Trust. How do I apply that? Dustin, you know all about behavioral psychology. How do you apply that to a program? So I think community is one thing, and then also I really appreciate from both of you is your communication. The fact that you're able to just lean into this thing and find ways to communicate with an audience of all shapes and sizes and all types of backgrounds of people. And when you put things in a term that people can kind of understand, like sports, you're able to get a message across and connect with them through metaphor in kind of a special way. It's as a former science journalist myself, I always found that like being able to kind of put things into terms that people can relate to can be extremely effective.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's interesting because you also get to it's that non-threatening. It's back to what George was saying. There's not a feeling of like I've got to buy something from this guy to talk to him, or I've got to buy from these other people, or there's no expectation of anything, which is really nice, and it allows for that organic community. Again, as you talk about, I think it's also, you and I were talking, and I think it's also fun because when you meet up at an event like this, you get to look at it in terms of because we've in the fishbowl, we're always looking at corollaries between two very different things. It makes it really interesting when you come to a conference like Cyber Marketing Con to look at what are the things that we're hearing in the session that you and I are, and that we're hearing in the sessions, and how does that relate to the day-to-day job of doing cybersecurity? I think we were talking about the fact that it's funny because the tactics that are being talked about in every one of these sessions are the exact same tactics that as somebody who led GRC for a Fortune 100 company and had to do security awareness training for organizations, it's all of the things we tell people, if you see this in an email, you should immediately report it. But it's everything that marketers are taught to do. So it's that kind of fun and kind of the double-edged sword of do it over here, but don't do it over here.
100%.
And playing into people's innate behaviors to get them to the things we want from a behavioral standpoint. People to do when you're marketing to them are the exact same things we don't want them to do when they get an email that is a fraudulent email.
Thank you, Dustin. That is going to be the next topic for the next 40 minutes of this show here. It's exactly this. How are marketers the same thing as social engineers? George, I've read you've written this down. Was it in your book or was it in an article? I know for a fact
it was just a blog. Yeah.
Was just a blog. Okay. I know for a fact I've seen you write about this. Take it away. Like, what are some things that you think are, what similarities do you see?
I mean, I think Dustin's spot on, right? So, we're trained in cyber to look out for these things. So, gosh, my favorite story is my CIO had just left. He had retired. I had a new CIO start, and we were a little forward thinking. We gave the new CIO a new phone number because we didn't want him to get a bunch of marketing calls, right? So on my caller ID, I see a call coming in from my old boss's number. Right, so he doesn't work here anymore. His phone is deactivated, but some marketer thought it would be a good idea to spoof my boss's phone number to get me to pick up. And so I'm like, oh, I'm taking this call. And all I wanted out of it was like, who do you work for? What company is this? Oh, really? Okay, that's really interesting.
So who was it?
Well, I'm not
I
going
know.
to say here,
I'm kidding.
but I when I'm not on camera or being recorded, I definitely do talk with my CISO peers to say this is what this company was doing, and we share those stories.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we're sitting here on what the beginning of December, and the email that I know George and I are always getting almost every day is, sign up now before the end of the year. We can make really great deals for you for the end of the year. If you had gotten an email saying, hey, I need you to do this like right now, that sense of urgency, we tell people, slow down, stop, think about it. But the minute you put that kind of objection up with a marketer, they're like, well, what's holding you back? Why aren't you doing this? I love how often marketers will use gift cards to get you to do things. I'll give you this gift card, or click this link to sign up, or every one of these booths out here have QR codes they want people to scan. If you just think about all of the things that we're doing, we're talking a lot. We've heard so much at this conference already about how to use AI to do it, and of course that makes it really interesting because, George, the way we've trained people traditionally is look for misspellings, look for things that aren't punctuated correctly. That goes out the window when you've got AI. Now it's, does this sound? You have to lean on that behavioral science side, which to me is so exciting because you have to go, is this an email that George would send? The example I'll give you, I remember, and this is one that for me was hilarious, and it'll call back to Sean. Sean is overseas at the conference he would do in Sweden every year, and he and I both simultaneously get a text message that's purported to be from the CEO of the company we were at. Now, Sean had regular text message conversations with this person, with the CEO. I had never had a one-on-one conversation with the CEO. So the first thing I'm thinking is, wow, really cool, this guy's texting me. And then I go, well, wait, that seems a little weird. Like, why is the first time I'm talking to the CEO of a Fortune 100 company via text message? So I asked, I happened to reach out and I go, hey, Sean, did you get this as well? And he goes, yeah. He goes, you can ignore it. It's written too well to be him.
Yes.
He doesn't speak that way. He can't spell that third word that's on there. This is not him. I would get text messages purporting to be Sean. I'm like, there are not enough cuss words in here. This is not Sean. Sean, this is not how he talks. Plus, it's coming from a number that doesn't match up with where they should be located. But marketers use those techniques. The text message I got was a local Houston area number, and I was like, that doesn't seem right. But marketers will do that all the time because they want to get your attention. These attention grabbing, type of things are what sell, what get the meetings, because they're hoping, like George said, that you're going to go, well, I got to see what this one is, and I'm going to play this one out a little bit. And,
yeah, I want to waste your time.
But it's not even I want to waste your time. It's I want to see how far I can take this. I remember one of my very good friends in college. He has worked for AT&T for many years as a business salesperson, and what would be funny was when we were in college, when landlines were still a thing, we'd get these marketing calls at dinner time, and it would be hilarious to listen because he would do the "I'm going to waste your time," but he'd start trying to like sell stuff out of the fridge. Like it was hilarious to listen to, but it's always interesting to listen to these, to see these marketing tactics and understand the way that this ties to security awareness. And it, again, it's that what the challenge that we run into, especially from the behavioral standpoint, is if you're conditioned to do things in your personal life or address certain things in your personal life, when you come to work, it's going to be very hard to change those behaviors. The reason why most people use their passwords in their username and password the same in multiple places is because they're conditioned at work in many cases to do that, or they do it at home and then they bring it to work. You know, I always was blown away. We would get alerts when I worked in the SOC at an organization in Houston. I was always blown away. We would get the alerts every day of where were credentials being compromised, and corporate credentials. The number one place was Grubhub, because people didn't think, oh wait, I shouldn't use my network credentials because they're just so conditioned at work. I use my network credentials for everything. And it wasn't that they were trying to be bad, because the majority of individuals are. I was talking with somebody today who brought up, who reminded me of the statistic. There's a report out there by one of the big organizations that does a lot of research that said that 70% of the people who violate controls are doing it just to get their job done. So it's really important to understand are we conditioning people through cyber marketing to be okay with things that we would not condition them to do elsewhere. And how do we bridge that? How do we find the ways, and that's why the Phish Bowl is so great, because it is that, communities like that build this idea of that non-threatening kind of conversational where I can make a contact with somebody and go, hey, have you heard of this group? What is your thought about it? And now I get, I can reach out to a vendor and go, hey, I want to talk with you, which I think marketers would appreciate more, us coming to them than them having to come to us. It makes their job certainly easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this conference so far, one of the recurring themes is trust, and the fact that marketers are trying to cut through this incredible noise now. And so for marketing, we send out spam. There is so much spam. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen spam before for marketers. I'm going to assume, I can't even imagine what your LinkedIn messages look like in your box there. I can't imagine what your emails look like if you go into your junk mail folder, or if you just even in your normal folder. And so we're sending out emails, and there are different ways to do it. There is the way that we do it if we use like a reputable platform like HubSpot or ActiveCampaign, and you cannot just blast out at everybody. But then there are the other ones where you could, I won't denigrate our competitors, but there are other people out there who just blast out millions on one of these things. If they get deplatformed, they can come right back on. So you can just sort of, and the whole idea is conversion. Can you get enough of your emails through that somebody, even if you have like, let's say like a 0.001% open rate and like whatever conversion rate, you at least got that conversion from a marketing perspective. And think about, what does that sound like? I mean,
Spray and pray. Spray and pray.
George,
yeah.
Absolutely. And George, you wrote the book Well Aware, which by the way is my favorite security awareness book. I recommend everyone to read George Finney's book. And I actually forgot that we probably should have introduced ourselves a little more properly here. In fact, let's just take a little break here to introduce yourselves and like what you do for a living and where you are. And then we'll get back to this.
Well, howdy y'all. I'm George Finney. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer for the University of Texas system. So we have 14 institutions under our umbrella. We're the biggest, we're one of the biggest university systems really in the world. We've got 250,000 students, about 140,000 employees. I've got 14 CISOs that have dotted line reporting up to me, hundreds of people just in our security organization. So just an incredible organization. But as you mentioned, I've written a couple of books. So well aware was my. I feel like that's my opus. That's really where my passion
It's such a great book.
Is around security awareness. It won the Book of the Year award in 2020. But I also wrote the book on Zero Trust, which is
Also a great book.
Weird to say. Project Zero Trust just this year was inducted into the Cybersecurity Hall of Fame. And the sequel to it's kind of a case study story kind of approach like the Phoenix Project. But the sequel came out over the summer applying Zero Trust to AI. It's called Rise of the Machines because I just include so many pop culture references that that's almost why people kind of pick up the book because it's it's a fun read. But I've been in cyber for almost a quarter century now, and just an amazing journey. And being able to give back to the community with writing books or with some of the teaching that I've done has been. I never thought that I would be able to have a career like this. So I'm just so fortunate to be in cyber these days.
He's underselling himself. He just taught at Harvard yesterday. I mean, like that's.
Well, it was
That's
just a
pretty
guest
amazing.
lecture. I mean,
It doesn't matter. You can
It's pretty
still
amazing.
put guest lecturer at Harvard on your resume. That's a pretty big deal. And I'm Dustin Sachs. I have been in cyber. Not as
Dr.
quite-
Dustin Sachs.
Doctor. Haven't been in cyber quite as long. Not too much less, but not quite as long as George. But I started out in in a very technical role in forensics, and have then worked through and run GRC and risk management programs for organizations. Currently, I am in the process of really developing a startup around behavioral science and really looking at the way in which not only we make decisions, but the way we implement our strategies, because so often we throw tools at our strategies instead of understanding that people have to implement the strategy, and therefore it doesn't even matter as much what your tool set is. It matters how are the people implementing it, and does it work at your organization. The story that I always love to tell to put this into perspective is a story that I read in a book, and I forget which book it was now because I read so many of them. I've read every one of George's books, so to be able to sit next to a guy like George is a big deal. He is a real person. He does exist.
I'm not a deep fake.
I
Yeah.
haven't seen the charging port yet, but the Matrix charging port might be in the back. I just haven't seen it yet. But the story that I always love to tell to put this into perspective is the guy who laid out the structure of the Apple stores got hired by JCPenney because JCPenney said, we love what you've done with the Apple stores. And anybody who's gone into an Apple store knows there's a very deliberate design of the store to walk you through a customer experience. They play behavioral science really well. Costco's another one that does this. I always use this example. If you think, anyone who's listening to this or watching this, think about your local Costco and think about where the toilet paper, bottled water, eggs, paper towels, milk are all located in relation to the front door of the place. They're in the back left corner typically, or the far corner from where the door is. So you have to walk through the entire store. People wonder how they walk out with more stuff. That's how, because they've put so many things in the way. And then, oh, by the way, if that didn't work, they're going to put at the end caps of the freezer section free samples of everything, because they know that's going to get you to buy stuff. But so back to the story is Apple, JCPenney hires the guy who created the Apple stores and says, do what you did over there, exactly the same way here at JCPenney. And it failed miserably, as we can all expect. 1, the clientele is different. 2, the target market is different. 3, what you're selling is different. And they were like, well, why didn't it work? And we see this in cyber as well. I always love, and I'm sure, George, you're going to get a chuckle out of this. I loved when I was deputy CISO in charge of GRC, where I'd have somebody from our desk, from our workstation team come to me and go, we are going to be 100% compliant with CIS level 2. I go, no, you're not. You're never going to be compliant. You are going to have coverage for everything, but there are things there you're not going to be allowed to implement because they're not going to work for our organization. It's this idea the idea that we have to get to is this idea that the way in which we address security awareness, the way in which we get people to do the secure thing is going to vary by organization, and that's an okay thing. We've got to stop the one size fits all. We'll just keep training people, because Verizon Data Breach Report for the last 20 years has said 85 to 95% of issues are human related. That number hasn't moved, and every year we say, we'll just train them more.
Amen.
It doesn't work.
Well, I think that number's wrong, by the way, but
Yeah.
I think it's 100%.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, it's your organizations are 100% people. You know, whether
Yeah.
they made a config error on a device or didn't patch, it still
not-
all comes back to humans.
You're bringing up config errors. There may or may not be a company that has had 2 of those happen recently in quick succession to each other, matter of fact. Anyone who wants, because we're not going to badmouth anybody, go out and Google the incidents that
You're
may
a
have
gentleman, Dustin.
in the middle of November and the beginning of December with a large organization that has a tenuous control of the internet.
I think I might have an inkling of who you're talking about. Yeah, with those clues there. Yeah, absolutely. It comes back to people, and I think it also comes back to you guys in your positions as cyber leaders. And George, you mentioned that you had 14 CISOs. Do you say CISO or CISO? How do you pronounce it?
I say CISO.
CISO.
Oh
okay.
God, we're getting into the GIF
No, I
versus
won't.
GIF debate. Are we really?
I heard this thing.
Sean and I, by the way, had this discussion, and it got very heated.
Oh, no.
Like the level of like whiteboarding that, by the way, and you can appreciate this, both of you, I think, having known Sean, the way he whiteboarded this thing out. We had an hour-long meeting whiteboarding out his rationale for it. It was hilarious.
That's amazing. So, and I'm thinking about going back to the idea of how we're marketers the same as social engineers, and how both of you have a real expert perspective on both of things, because you're being inundated with attacks from social engineers. So you're seeing all the different kinds of attacks, the ways they're trying to get past the perimeter, get through the filters, and have a message that's going to get someone to click. But you're also being inundated by marketing from all corners. And your that caller ID spoof you had that is next level shady marketer, by the way.
Yeah.
But what I wonder about, like, and part of that is like what compels different people to click on something. In marketing, we try really hard to have a punchy, compelling message. What's that subject line that's going to get someone to click? And I'm not going to say that a puppy's going to die if you don't try out a demo on our platform, but you do have those. You absolutely have urgency, and it's part of our jobs. We do have to get results from our marketing activities. But we, at Hoxhunt, where I work, we make an actual conscious effort never to use FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt with these things. And I've seen people who've really gotten like hammered back by and publicly humiliated for doing too much FUD on LinkedIn when they kind of go that route. But one thing that I just thought of when you have someone doing a caller ID spoof is that, like, spear phishing. And ABM marketing, account-based marketing. It is incredible with the advent of AI, how you can have a marketing platform scrape LinkedIn, scrape the internet for open source intelligence, and craft you a really personalized marketing message right there. I think that's coming. Are you seeing that also with the attackers? Are you seeing more and more AI-enabled, basically spear phishing is the new normal type stuff?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think. Well, let me ask you a question, Eliot.
Sure.
So, have you ever picked up a woman at a bar?
Not for a little while, but yeah.
Right. I mean, we're talking about the same thing, right? I mean, what you were saying earlier in terms of like percentages, like we know we need to get so much of a response rate before we get kicked off of active campaign or whatever, right? That's literally how pickup artists talk about.
Great one.
I mean, percentages, right? Eventually somebody's going to say yes.
It's a numbers game, right?
I mean, how offensive is that really in the scheme of things, right? I mean,
100%.
It's not about connection. It's not about building anything valuable. And I think so much of what I mean there are incredible services out there that our cyber partners provide. But if you're approaching it like a pickup artist and you're burning so much of the market because, like, I mean, even if you're using AI to craft the best pickup line, it's still a pickup line. You're still approaching me at a bar where, like, maybe I'm there just to burn some hours. Maybe I've had a hard day. Do I really want, like, what reason do you have to come up to talk to me, right? If you come up and sit next to me at the bar, like you kind of did with the fantasy football league, right? And we're watching the games on and we have a natural conversation, that's different than if you're like, hey, do you want to come back to my room? Like, right? I think, whether you bring in AI or not, what are we trying to do? And I think, where I've come, from the CISO side of things is, I'm looking for a relationship, but why do I look for a relationship? Right? It's about trust. It's about knowing what I'm getting and not being used like a number in order to just get your quota for the month or the year or whatever.
So I think the truth about what Eliot gave us before the webcast comes out. Trying to liquor us up and then get us to, purchase.
It is true. I gave them both some very fine Helsinki liquor before
he did
got
it.
started.
He socially engineered us into thinking it was a gift.
I lubricated this entire.
Not a gift.
We should be taking shots right now.
No,
I feel like.
I think it's a good idea.
But what I'm caught with, and I want to be, the corollary that I'm thinking of, because I don't want it to be, especially since we're sitting here and getting to do this at Cyber Marketing Con, for free. I want to be, if they go back and watch this, I want them to know that we weren't totally trashing marketers. Is the fact that, it's very similar though to, as an incident responder or a pen tester, the same kind of line you have to toe. I learned how to use tools. I mean, we teach students to use Wireshark. Wireshark is a network sniffer. It could be used for very, very malicious things very, very easily, doing the exact same things we're teaching cyber defenders to use. It's not about the tactic you're using as much as it's about the way in which you're using the tactic. Because there are plenty of the idea of creating some, again, as somebody who built security awareness campaigns within an organization, there were many times where I would craft a title that was clickbaity to get them to open it. Once they opened it, I was trying to then give them something that was useful and make sure. But yeah, you're using what otherwise would be considered. I mean, how many times I remember having, and I'll go back to again another Sean story. I remember having conversations with him where we would talk about the fact that how many times have you gone to some website, Facebook, whatever it may be, clicked on a link on the side because the story was like Tom Cruise gets into a car accident, and then you click on it and it's everything but Tom Cruise getting into the car accident. Right now, I will admit, I used this at one point for a security awareness campaign. We leaned on Taylor Swift. We made a Taylor Swift reference to get people to open it. It's all about what are you trying, because there's a reason to lean into some of that stuff. There is a very reasonable behavioral science reason. When you get into I'm never going to shame somebody for following the same path that they follow to the grocery store every time without looking at. What I am going to say is you can't be upset when there's traffic on that route if you didn't consider the route you were taking. But following those, we make about between automatic and non-automatic, and I'm talking about like, should I take a breath or not, which we often don't think about. Humans make about 35,000 decisions a day. There's no way to make a full, so you've got to lean on these behaviors and these things. And, right now, if you're not doing a campaign around the holidays, or you're not, leaning into the new year, I mean, that's why all of the emails right now are predictions for 2026, because that's what everybody's thinking of. It's why you hit people up in October and November for budget for next year. Hey, I've got this new tool. I've got this thing that can help you. Because it's budget season. There are reasons to do that. It's why are you doing it? Are you using your powers for good, or are you using them for evil? Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker both knew different sides of the Force. It's the way in which they used the same Force
100%.
to do things.
Yeah, 100%. I saw that in both of your guys' books too, about the idea of how much of your life is actually basically on autopilot. You both have written, I forget what the stat was, but yeah, 30,000 choices a day. So if you're able to give someone a message that connects with that part that they're on autopilot, where they're just going to go, oh, Pavlovian, I see this message, my mouth is watering, I'm going to click on that one now. So whatever that might be, and that's something that marketers, sure, we absolutely look at seasonality, we look at the different things, and we also, now, I'm actually am definitely not like squatting down over the whole marketing profession here. And I think Gianna Whitmer, one of the people who co-founded this conference herself, just said yesterday in one of her panels was that there are certain vendors that they refuse to actually work with because they do just gross marketing.
Yeah.
And it's something that I won't be a part of, and people I know, there's like, there are absolutely ethics involved with this whole thing. And before we have a few more minutes here, we should also pay a little bit of tribute to the fact of what separates a social engineer from a marketer. And one of those things is that we're actually trying to help people ultimately. The good ones are. Yeah. If we have a good product that we can actually help someone with, we actually are trying to help someone reduce their risk, improve their profession, whereas social engineers are purely about enriching themselves. So,
well, and I think that, just to add to that, I mean, thinking about, how can you as a marketer, I mean, using social engineering, add value? Right. I mean, and I think they're great ways, right? Like, again, going back to the fantasy football league, helping folks network, right? Some of the best sales or marketing folks are like, hey, we think you'd really, get a lot out of meeting, so and so. Let me connect y'all. I'll step back. Y'all just have those folks stand out in my minds because they were doing something not just to benefit themselves, but they helped me, take a step in my career. Or like, some marketers were like, hey, I heard you wrote the book on Zero Trust. Here's my Zero Trust product. Okay, well, instead, like, hey, I heard you wrote this book, Well Aware, about cybersecurity awareness. Hey, can you come give a keynote speech for this group of folks that I'm working?
100%.
It's a different kind of conversation where you made that connection, but what did you do with it? Did you start that relationship, or did you instantly turn it off and have me shut you down?
Well, and to bring it to bring the football corollary, here's a great example. I'm going to go back to it. I don't think anybody, let alone the NFL as a whole as well, that faults the Kansas City Chiefs for making sure that every single time that they have a home game, they are showing on screen as many times as they can one of the skyboxes. They know that they can get people to tune in because they've got somebody in one of the skyboxes that they can get. I mean, the numbers, if you've seen the numbers over the last couple seasons of the demographic of people who are now watching football, I mean, you've got fathers and daughters that are watching football now and connecting at levels they never had connected before, because they can turn on a Kansas City Chiefs game and find something that works for both of them. Football and sports have been doing this for years. I mean, if we all have people who I'm sure watch football because they like the guys to be in their uniforms and their pants. Why do we're very close to Dallas. Why do people go to Dallas Cowboys games? It's not to watch them win, because it's just
the
not.
halftime shows.
Stop. No, come on. I can't talk about the Cowboys anymore.
I mean, I'm a Texans fan, so I really can't be talking too much.
Oh, I might have to sit between you two here.
But the reason that football teams have cheerleaders is to get a demographic to show up to the game that wouldn't otherwise show up. Whether it's, sleazy or not, it's effective because they know their audience. Part of the challenge and part of the thing where I think what sets the really good ones, the really good cyber marketers apart from the really bad ones are those who know their audience. I would never, if I'm a cyber marketer, I am not sending emails marketing to people to cyber leaders on a Monday or a Friday. There's a reason why in what I do and the communities that I lead, that I'm part of, we do most of our events on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, because Mondays and Fridays we know are off limits. I would never send, you would never have, a marketer would never send an email at 4:30 on a Friday. They know no one's going to pay attention. They know that that's just not effective. So the really good ones have to know their audience and have to know what they can say and what they can't. How many times have you and I probably been hit by a marketer in the immediate aftermath of some big news story about our organizations going, hey, I've got a solution that can help you. And you're like,
you
no.
sell for the breach, right?
Yeah.
Our product would have prevented whatever happened to this other company. Again, that's chasing ambulances.
Yeah.
Has that ever worked for you? Have you ever gotten an email that said if you only had used us, or if SolarWinds had used us, they wouldn't have gotten breached? And you're like, that's right.
100% no. I work for a university, and we saw a vendor coming in that was selling facial recognition, and I was like, hey, there's the school shooting that just happened. They would have been able, if only they used our facial recognition.
Yuck.
Like, are you kidding me?
Ugh.
I mean, not only no, but hell no.
And the other thing on the other end of that, I'll say as well, is if you're a cyber marketer, pay very close attention to the statistics you are putting up. My absolute favorite one, you said you had the one that you kept them on. I did a demo call for a tool. I don't even remember what tool it was now. Simply because I wanted to hear how they were backing up their statistic, because the subject line was, we can solve 100% of breaches. And I was like, I want to get on this one just to hear how you're going to try to pull this one off. Like, it was pure entertainment at that point. I had no intent of ever buying this tool. And I was asking questions just to try to see how they were going to answer it.
Yeah.
Just because it was more at that point, I just needed a good laugh. I wanted to be able to be like, how are you possibly going to claim 100% of breaches? And I think theirs was even more audacious, because they said we can prevent 100% of breaches before they happen. I was like, really? If you can do that, then why aren't you the top company in cybersecurity?
Why are there
Because
still
you've
breaches?
literally just answered the goal of every cybersecurity. If George gets asked by the Board of Regents, what are you gonna, what's your goal? To prevent breaches before they happen. To prevent every breach before it happens.
Here's the solution: pen, paper, analog. No more digital systems whatsoever.
I've joked for many years, and I used to joke as a forensic examiner that things would be so much easier if we didn't have humans and we didn't have digital evidence. But then again, then I'd have no job and I would not be where I'm at today. But I think, and it's interesting that we talk about this, because part of it, and one of the things that I covered in my book, was this idea that we have to understand the way in which we as humans interact with the internet. I have a 13-year-old child. I know you have a 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had even a 5-minute internet outage in your house? And how did that go?
Yeah, total chaos.
I mean, I have a 13-year-old who, if the internet is out for 5 minutes, for even 30 seconds, he's like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? Because we've become so reliant on it. I mean, how many of us, when we leave our house without our cell phone, feel a sense of almost feeling naked?
Oh, absolutely.
That feeling, that reaction, is because we've become so accustomed to it. So we have to understand that, and there's advantage to understanding that as well. If I can come at you with a solution that understands you're a SaaS solution provider, and we can help minimize downtime of availability issues, we can create redundancy. I mean, Look at what happens when AWS goes down. Look at what happens when, systems go down that are reliant on, tools. And the ripple effect it has. I think we're gonna just see it more and more. And the biggest challenge right now is we've started down this path that I think is really kind of dangerous a little bit, because we're treating AI as a separate thing from a lot of our other strategies. We're treating AI as non-human identity. And I think that AI becoming as ubiquitous as it has now become in our lives, and it's been there for so many years, because ChatGPT, when it came out, I reminded a lot of people, you've been using Siri for how many years? You've been using Alexa for how many years? Guess what? You've been doing the same thing you're doing in ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever with a different tool for years. You never realized it. And I think we've got to address, again, it goes back to we've got to meet people where they are. It's much easier. I use this example when I talk about policy creation, and I know we're running out of time, so I'll give this one real quickly, which is, if I tell when my child was younger, if I told him, if he said, can I have a cookie before dinner? And I said, no, you can't have a cookie. All he's gonna do is go, I want a cookie, I want a cookie, I want a cookie, or he's gonna throw a tantrum. If I say, you know what? If you eat your dinner, you will get a cookie afterwards. He's more likely to he may not like it. He may make a show out of eating his vegetables that he doesn't want to eat. He may choke them down, but he's going to eat them because there's something coming at the end for him. I got him to do the same thing I wanted him to do, which was eat his dinner. I just approached it a different way, in a less friction way. And that removal of friction makes a difference. So I think as people are thinking about their 2026 strategies, they should be thinking about, how can we meet people where they're at?
I love it. We have 2 minutes left here, gentlemen. Speed round. What is the best marketing message you've ever had? When have you been like, this was nice, this is what I wanted, this made my life a little better today?
Yeah, it's okay for you to join this fantasy football league.
I hope that pans out, that you win the award. I think that was a really phenomenal exercise for y'all. So that was one of the better ones for sure. I would say, thinking for me, just being involved in a part of the process, right? So I got to be a part of one of the major vendors' cyber conferences, and being able to be a part of that. That got me kind of inside access to some of their executive leadership. I got to hear kind of more of their story, where they're really going. So it's not just like, I'm talking to another sales rep and, they're trying to close a deal. It was really about, okay, now I feel like I understand the company a little bit more. So, not everybody gets that kind of opportunity.
I think to George's point as well, it's about building relationship. I certainly can speak for myself. I went out of my way to learn what Hoxhunt does after joining the league, after getting to know you, after getting to see the group that was in there and the band of misfit toys that we have. But it made me want to go out and learn more about what is he doing, what does Hoxhunt do, because it was non-threatening, because I knew that I could ask, hey, what are you guys doing? And, I got to do a podcast with you because of that. Because, to me, it was, okay, these guys are doing something really cool. And now I'm more likely to go and say, when George comes to me and goes, hey, any good security awareness companies out there? I can be like, well, yeah, I'm in this fantasy football league with this guy from Hoxhunt, who does, who's really approachable. And it makes it that much easier. So it is about building relationships. This idea of transactional relationships is gone.
That's a great way to end this. I didn't mean to make this all about me, but I guess I did. So it all comes back down to the CISO Fantasy Phish Bowl. I did want to pay tribute to Sean Bowen. Sean Bowen passed away tragically last year doing what he loved to do. Dustin reached out to me over LinkedIn saying I have to be a part of this because, and as Dustin has referenced this throughout this whole episode, how much this apparently meant to Sean and to Dustin working together. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you in this thing,
It's been an
Dustin.
honor to be
Your
part of it
energy, you were
and
one of the
sit in this
funniest
group.
people on a chat group to have. If anyone can have Dustin as part of a chat group, I really recommend it. It's a pretty joyful experience.
Yeah, as I told you, when I joined and I saw the list of names, I was like, I get it now. I understand why he said what he said. It put a lot of the meetings I had with him into perspective really quickly, and I understood why he was so passionate about this and why he talked about things the way he did, because the group that's there is just, it's one of the best, one of the
It's an
greatest
amazing
groups.
group of people.
And
Just
I
an
hope
amazing group of people.
I really hope that, even just as the newcomer, that, that the recognition comes the way it should, tonight and in the years to come.
Appreciate it, gentlemen. Very much appreciated. Okay, that'll do it. Thank you to the Cyber Marketing Con and our webinar podcast engineer in the back there. Let us go a couple minutes over here. So very much appreciated. This has been a delightful conversation. This hour flew by. So yeah, appreciate it.
Thank
Great
you.
seeing you.
Thanks, Eliot.
Finally face to face.
Yes. Thank you.
Very exciting. I feel like I know you so well for all these other virtual meetings. But okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Dude,